So in this lesson, we're going to be looking at percentages, and so the first thing to understand is what is a percentage. So it's derivative of two different words, the word per and the word cent. So individually, what are these things? Well, per is another way of saying out of, which is one of our words we use for division. And what about the other word, cent? Cent is just the base root saying 100. So really, instead of saying percentage, we can say out of 100. So let's say an example, 50%. We can rewrite this very literally as 50 out of 100. So, because out of is another way of saying divide, that's 50 divided by 100. So really a percentage is just a very particular fraction that's written over 100. So we have to ask the question, what is the point of it? Why is there a whole topic on percentages if it's just another fraction? Well, percentages allow us to compare fractions really easily and also as a good equivalence to the real world when we look at the values of two different numbers, like error percentages or percentages increase. So let's give an example of that. If I asked you what was larger, 4/5 or 15/20. Now, it may not be, which of these is larger of the two? It may not be apparently obvious exactly which one is larger straight away. It gets a little bit awkward, and you can imagine as fractions get much larger and more complex with the numbers, this is not going to be particularly clear. But by knowing our percentages, 4/5 is 80%, and 15/20 is 75%. So therefore, you can now very quickly see, because these are now out of a standard base, which is 100, 80% is greater than 75. And there's our answers to that one. So you can see that this is a really useful tool, and so being able to convert between a fraction and a percentage quickly is very key to this. So let's look into how we do that. So let's say that fraction that we used earlier, 4/5, and let's see how we can convert that into a percentage. So we said that percentage is any fraction over 100. So in order for these to be equivalent, because they do mean the same thing, we're going to need to get to something that looks like this, something over 100. So now becomes a challenge of how you go from here, from 5 to 100. So we know to go from 5 to 100, we can multiply by 20. Now, to keep these equivalent, we've got to do the same to the top, and multiply the top number by 20. So 4 times 20 is 80. Now we have a fraction that's over 100. We instead write this, we can get rid of the over 100 and just write that as our percentage symbol. And that's how you can convert it to percentage. So this is fairly simple with numbers which fit neatly into 100 with nice easy multiples. For example, if we took 3/20 as an example, again, we want a percentage, we have to convert this to something over 100. And in one step we can do that. We multiply 20 by 5 to get us up to 100. So we do the same to the top to keep it equivalent. Multiply 3 by 5, and that gives us 15. 15 over 100, we say, is 15%. So what happens in this case? 3/6. This is a little bit more awkward because 6 doesn't go into 100 very easily at all, not in one step at least. So what we're going to need is an intermediate step first, with some number in the middle, some middle fraction. What we're going to do, we're going to convert 3/6 into something over 1. Why is that? Well, once we're at the number 1, the step up to 100 is quite easy. You just times your answer by 100. But we can always go from any number to 1, very simply. And the way to do that is just to divide by itself. So whatever your fraction is, divide the numerator by itself and you get to 1. And then you can convert to 100 pretty quickly. So, equivalent fractions, so what we have to do is to the bottom, we do to the top. And we do 3 divided by 6 to give us 0.5. Now this might look a little bit strange what we've done there because we've got decimals in our fractions. That's perfectly fine. Remembering that these are just numbers, the numerator and the denominator, so they can take any form, whether they be fractions, indices, or just whole numbers. Normally we won't leave our answer as decimals, but that's fine. That's something we can deal with once we have our answer at the end. And if you weren't too sure how we get from 3 to 0.5 here, when we divide by 6, just write this out in our long division. 6 doesn't fit into 3, so that means we put 0 here, because 6 starting with 3, so it doesn't fit. 6 zeros is 0. So do our subtraction, that leaves us with 3 remainder. So add our decimal points in, bring the 0 across, because remember it's 3.0, and there's always zeros after this point. 0 comes down. How many 6's into 30? Well, they fit in exactly 5 times, because 6 5's are 30. 0 remainder, and there's your answer. So that's our 0.5 over 1. Now we've got to times by 100 to get to 100. So 0.5 times 100, same thing we did on a multiplication lesson, you just move the decimal point 2 places to the right. So moving that 2 places to the right is going to give us 50. So 50 over 100, and now we can write that as 50%. There we go. So let's do a different question to practice. Let's practice turning 3/7 into a percentage. So what we do, the first step is 7's not going to fit neatly to 100, so first of all we divide it by 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 1, and now we're going to do 3 divided by 7. Now that's a little bit tricky, and that's just going to give us a number that repeats itself. So we're going to leave it just to a few decimal places. 7 into 3 doesn't go. That leaves us with 3 remainder. Decimal points come up. 0 down. 7 to 30, we can fit 4 multiples in, which is 28. That leaves us with 2 remainder. In the next 0. 7 into 20, we can fit twice. It gives us 14, which would give us 6 remainder. But for now, we'll leave this as the answer to be approximately 0.42, because this would leave going forever. So we put 0.42 up here, and we'll just say that this is approximate for now. And then at the end, we times by 100. So 1 times 100 is 100. 0.42 times 100 is 42, and that gives us, as we said, approximately 42%. Normally you'll get questions which are a little bit easier. You won't have this long string of zeros, but this is just an example of how you would deal with such a problem. Is that it doesn't really matter. You just, at some point, you'll draw a line where you'll say 2 decimal places is enough for accuracy, and then you can just continue onwards. And that's the little squiggly sign for equals just means it's an approximation. So now for you to practice the question. For 420, yes. So I just want to pause the video and just give that one a shot. Okay, so for the answer to that one, this is a nice easy one, and it goes in one step. So 20 fits into 100 by multiplying by 5. 4 times 5 is 20, which is 20%. Okay, I'll give another example a try. Let's do 7/50ths. Yeah, pause the video and we'll have a look at this one. Okay, so the answer for this one, 50 times by 2 gets us to 100. And now we do the same. 7 times 2 is 14. It's 14%. So now that we've had a good amount of practice going from a fraction to a percentage, we can go the other way around just as easily. 60%. So we need to, first of all, say that 60% is actually 60 over 100. So that's your percentage to fraction step straight away by changing the percentage sign to over 100. And now we just need to simplify. So we can see that both numbers can be divided by 10 straight away. That gives us 6 over 10. And now we can see that both have multiples of 2's in them. So this becomes 6 divided by 2 is 3, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 60% becomes 3/5. And this is a very easy process. So if we took 12%, same process again. That's 12 over 100. And now we just begin to simplify. Both can be divided by 2. That gives us 6 over 10. Oh, sorry, 6 over 50. And we can see we can divide by 2 again. 3 25ths. And that's the smallest this one goes, so that's your answer there. And then you can get more, this doesn't get much more complicated even if you add in decimals. 62.7%. Same process. 62.7 over 100. That should convert into a fraction. And then that would be your answer in this case, because this is as simple as it can go. But if you notice, we have a decimal point in our final answer, which we don't really want to keep. So what we tend to do is we get rid of that. How can we do that? Well, on the top side, we get rid of it by times it by 10. To give us 627. But to keep this equivalent, if we times the top by 10, so is the bottom. So 100 becomes 1,000. And there you go. That's how you can go from a fraction to percentage, or percentage to a fraction. Okay, so now that we've covered going from a fraction to a percentage and percentage to a fraction, we now need to include decimals to percentages and back. So, what can we do here? Well, we know ultimately we're going to want this to be divided by 100 in order to call it percentage. So, first step, we'll divide by 100. That allows us to write this down as 0.78 over 100. Now, these two aren't the same things as each other, because we've just divided by 100. This is 100 times smaller than here. So, to keep it the same, if we divide it by 100, we now have to times by 100. So, when we times 0.78 by 100, 0% over 100 by 100, when you're just timesing one side, like so, you need to just remember that you can treat this 100 as 100 over 1, because anything divided by 1 is itself. So now it's written like this. Now you can see that 0.78 times 100 is going to be 2 decimal places over, it's going to be 78, and then 100 times by 1 is still 100. And that gives us our 78%. So this is the long process of it, but the shorthand, once you see the pattern, is that 100% is 100 over 100, or the number 1. So when you see 0.78, all you do is, the trick is, you take the decimal point, and you put it 2 places to the right, and then add your percentage sign. So if we took number 0.92, just move the decimal point 2 places to the right, and add a percentage sign. So you can go through this process to check that you still get the same answer, but you can also use a shorthand method. And the same point applies when you have a percentage. 42%. To go back to a decimal, you can do the exact same process in reverse. Move the decimal point 2 places to the left, and remove the percentage sign. And that's how you go that way. Okay, just time for some quick practice. So, do you want to give a shot at converting 0.71 into a fraction, 22% into a decimal, 1.22 into a percentage, and 5.2 into decimal. So give the video a pause and give it a full try. Okay, so running through quickly, 0.71 is equivalent to 71%, 22% is 0.22, 1.22 becomes 122%, 5.2% is 0.92, Remember on the last one, when you move 2 decimal places to the left, once here gives you 0.52, then again add the 0 in to give you 0.0. So one small extra piece to remember when it comes to percentages is that because they're based on fractions and every percentage is over 100, it means that you can just add percentages up and multiply a percentage the same way you would a regular number. For example, 60% plus 12% is just going to be 72%. Because remembering that this means 60 over 100, this is 12 over 100. With the same base, they can be added together. 6 plus 12 is 72. And that's where you get the 72% from. And similarly, if you said 2 times 40%, really this is just 2 times by 40 over 100. And this is going to give us 80%. This is going to give us 80 over 100, which is 80%. So with all of that covered, now we have the ability to move between fractions, decimals and percentages nice and easily, with percentages being the link between fractions and decimals. So let's start off with looking at 10%. So with 10%, we can easily convert it into a decimal and say this is 0.1. And then to go to a fraction, this is 10 over 100. And then by simplifying, we can see that dividing top and bottom by 10 gives us 1 over 10. Let's take an example of 0.3. So, to fill out the other two, first of all, we always go back to percentages if we can. So 0.3 is 30%. And then 30% is 30 over 100. And that can be simplified down to 3 over 10. And so this is the pattern. You always go, whichever one you have, fractionals, decimals, come back to a percentage, and that allows you to find the other one. So, now time for you to practice a few. 2/5. So, what is 2/5 as a decimal and a percentage? Pause the video and give it a try. Okay, so let's do this. 2/5. Now to go to a percentage, we need to convert 5 into something over 100. So 5 fits into 100 by multiplying by 20. So 5 times 20 is 100. 20 times by 2 is 40. So 40 over 100 gives us our 40%. And then with our 40%, we can see that's going to become 0.4. Okay, and now for the next one, we'll give it a try. 0.75, try converting that into a percentage and a fraction. Okay, so 0.75 as a percentage, we see it's just going to be 75%. 75% is 75 over 100. And now we can see that both for multiples of 25. So dividing top and bottom by 25, that's going to give us 3 over 4. And that's our answer. So what we're able to do now is that we can populate all the common fraction, decimals and percentages in a big table. So we'll look at 1/2. So these are the sort of fractions, decimals, percentages that is important to have quickly off the top of your head so that you can go through them nice and easily. As a decimal, that's 0.5. As a percentage, that's 50%. Another common fraction is 1/4. 1/4 is 25%, or 0.25. A third is approximately 33%, so as opposed to writing 33.3 recurring, we're just going to leave it as an approximate 0.33. 1/5 is 0.2, 20%. Then we have a 1/10 and a 100th. That gives us 0.1 and 0.01. and 10% and 1%. So with these, it's then possible to make pretty much any other fraction or percentage just by pulling these together. For example, if you wanted to make 3/5, instantly spotting that this is a multiple this is equivalent of 3 lots of 1/5. And you know a fifth is 0.2, so if you wanted this as a decimal quickly, you should be able to see that this is going to be 0.6, because it's 3 lots of 0.2. Again, that's it for percentages.